Have you ever felt a strange chill before a journey? Like something invisible is trying to warn you? Most people ignore it. They brush it off as nerves, stress, or just a passing thought. But sometimes, that uneasy feeling is a whisper from the unseen. A quiet signal from the spiritual realm, telling you to stop, to pray, and to protect yourself before stepping out into the world. This is not just another story. This is a chilling reminder, one that could save your life. Because in ways we can't always see, danger waits in the shadows. And prayer is the only shield strong enough to hold it back. It was a quiet Wednesday morning when Angela packed her bags for a short trip. Nothing unusual. She was heading back to her hometown to visit her parents, something she hadn't done in months. Her bus was scheduled to leave at 9 a.m., and she was right on time. But just as she was locking the door, her phone buzzed. It was her aunt, a deeply religious woman. "Angela, pray before you go," she said, her voice urgent. "Just pray." Something doesn't feel right. Angela smiled and promised she would. But in her rush, she didn't. The morning was too busy. She grabbed her coffee, called a ride, and left. The bus station was crowded and everything seemed normal. But what Angela didn't know was that something had already been set in motion. Something dark. Something waiting for her down the Angela boarded the bus, found her seat near the window, and settled in. Outside, the sky was overcast, and the clouds hung low like they were hiding something. The bus engine roared to life, and the journey began. As the city slowly faded behind her, Angela plugged in her earphones and leaned back, scrolling through her phone. Everything seemed calm, but not for long. An hour into the journey, the bus entered a remote highway, one that cut through thick forests and empty lands. That's when Angela began to feel it. A strange heaviness in her chest. It wasn't physical. It was like the air around her had changed, pressing in, watching her. She looked around, hoping to catch someone's eye, maybe share a smile and shake off the feeling. But every other passenger was either sleeping or lost in their own world. The silence inside the bus became deafening. Suddenly, Angela's phone glitched. The screen froze, then went black. She tapped it. Nothing. She held the power button. Still nothing. That was when she noticed something else. There was no signal, not even a single bar. She looked outside. The trees were thick, darker than they should be, and the clouds above had turned an angry gray. The bus slowed down slightly. Angela leaned forward, trying to see what was ahead. Then the bus jerked, violently. Everyone woke up as the bus swerved slightly to the right, then steadied. The driver muttered something about a pothole, but Angela wasn't convinced. She looked into the aisle and noticed something chilling. The air inside the bus had become colder. Not just cool from the AC, it felt unnatural. Like someone had opened a door to something wrong. Then she remembered her aunt's voice. "Pray before you go. Something doesn't feel right." Wave of regret washed over her. Why didn't she listen? Why didn't she take 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, to say a simple prayer? She quietly whispered one now. Her voice trembled as she asked for protection, for safety, for mercy. No sooner had she finished than the bus came to a sudden stop. It wasn't a regular stop. It was harsh, abrupt, like the driver had slammed the brakes to avoid something. The passengers screamed. Some were thrown forward. Angela clutched the seat in front of her, her heart racing. She looked out the window, and what she saw made her blood run cold. A figure, standing in the middle of the road. It wasn't clear if it was a person or something else. It was tall, motionless, and cloaked in shadows. The driver honked the horn. The figure didn't move. One of the passengers near the front shouted, "What is that? Is that a person?" But no one had an answer. The driver opened his window and yelled out. But his voice seemed to vanish into the thick, heavy air. Then, without warning, the figure slowly turned and vanished, not walked away, not ran. It simply dissolved, like smoke being pulled into the ground. Silence filled the bus. No one dared to speak. The driver slowly started the engine again and drove forward. But this time, something had changed. The road looked the same, but the atmosphere felt off. The world outside the windows had gone dull, almost colorless. Angela's hands trembled. She looked down at her phone. Still dead. Still no signal. She clutched her necklace, a small cross her mother had given her years ago, and began to pray, this time louder. Her lips moved rapidly as she begged God for protection, for deliverance from whatever darkness they had stepped into. Then, just as suddenly as it had all started, the clouds broke. Sunlight pierced through the gray, flooding the road with golden light. The air inside the bus warmed. A bird flew across the sky. Something simple, but it felt like a sign. Angela looked around. The others were silent, but some were quietly praying too. Even the driver was whispering something under his breath. Angela closed her eyes. She didn't know what that figure was. She didn't know why the bus had stopped or why her phone had died. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Something evil had been on that road. Something unseen. And prayer had been the only thing holding it back. Her aunt had felt it. Angela had ignored it. But even in her delay, her whispered cry for help had been heard. The bus rolled on and eventually reached its destination. Angela got off, shaken, pale, but alive. Her phone suddenly came back on. Full signal, 20 missed calls, several texts, and one voice message from her aunt, sent just minutes before the bus had stopped. I don't know why, but I felt a strong force this morning. I prayed for you. I saw a vision of a dark road and a shadow in your path. I begged the Lord to send angels to protect you. Please, never forget to pray. Before every journey, Angela stood there, her bag in hand, heart pounding. Angela replayed her aunt's voice message again and again. Each word felt heavier than the last. She stood at the bus terminal, eyes wide, lips slightly parted, as if trying to breathe through the invisible pressure pressing on her chest. The sun was out now. People were walking around. Life continued as usual. But for Angela, nothing felt normal anymore. She realized something terrifying, that while she was asleep on that bus, laughing, earlier that morning, scrolling through her phone without a care, something had been watching. Something had been waiting for her to leave uncovered. Waiting for her to forget the most important step before any journey. Prayer. That evening, Angela sat at her parents' home, quiet and distant. Her mother noticed the change. Are you okay? She asked gently. Angela nodded but didn't speak. How could she explain it? That somewhere between the highways and trees, something spiritual had nearly reached her. That only prayer, delayed but still powerful, had saved her from something she couldn't even name. Her father sat beside her, and after a long silence, he said, Your aunt called me. She told me what she felt. We all prayed for you today, Angela. There's a reason you're here, safe. Angela finally broke down. The tears came fast, uncontrollable. It wasn't just fear, it was realization. A deep, trembling awareness that the world we see is not the only world that exists. What happened on that road could not be explained by science or logic. The figure that vanished, the dead phone, the unnatural cold. These weren't coincidences. They were spiritual signs, and she had ignored the warning. If her aunt hadn't prayed for her, if she hadn't whispered her own last-minute cry for help, what might have happened? Would she even be here? Days passed. Angela didn't speak of the incident to many people. Most wouldn't believe her. They would say it was a dream, a trick of the mind. But she knew. Deep down she knew. And she made a vow. Never again would she travel without prayer. Never again would she leave her home unguarded. Because sometimes we walk into storms that aren't made of rain. We drive through valleys that are not just empty roads, but spiritual battlegrounds. You see, prayer is not just a ritual, it is a shield. It is a spiritual covering that keeps us safe from what we cannot see. When you pray before traveling, you invite God to go before you, to make crooked paths straight, to send angels ahead, to clear the way of danger. You may not see what you've been protected from, but you'll feel it. In the stillness.